can sense that we've got a shot of winning it, but you just sense that it was just that 10th. Do you know what I mean? It was almost
always
like
that expectation that the Super League side was going to find an inch of quality at some point that would give them what they needed in such a close game, but they never did, and London stuck to the guns.
And I think that the funny thing about it was, and I think with the last season's qualifiers, is the fact being that the bottom four sides in the Super League weren't actually sort of like playing well. So it was that kind of championship where I think you could possibly have argued that 3 of the 4 championship sides could easily have gone up.
Well, I mean, you went to Leeds, didn't you? You went to Leeds, and it was a defeat, but it was a high-scoring defeat with plenty of promise. Similar happened against Toronto. Then,
well, we were home to Leeds, and the fact being was Leeds were under a lot of pressure themselves. But the first 15 minutes was like a nightmare. You know, you felt that with Leeds, that if you put points on the board early, you could sense there was going to be a bit of panic in the Leeds side. But the fact being that we gave them 3 soft tries, and by half time we were looking down the barrel, so it became more of a let's see if we can limit. Again, it was one of those games that by half time we knew that we were going to lose it, but all those points that we scored in the second half helped us immensely.
Confidence-wise, yeah, I'm sure.
I think in confidence-wise, and again, points difference-wise.
Yeah, and then you played against Toulouse, which was the next sort of game that London won, and London were comprehensive against Toulouse, handed them a bit of a beat down, and that was a massive then assistance in the points difference situation.
Absolutely.
What about the win over Salford? Salford were the best side in the qualifiers overall, but London, that didn't faze London, did it?
I think what it was going into the top 4, going into the qualifiers. Again, rather like the start of the season, everybody wrote off London. But going into the qualifiers, again, everybody wrote off London. So again, I think what it was in a funny kind of way, there was this real steely determination within the camp, as if to say, look, we've been written off. Nobody accepts us. So, in a way, a bit of the pressure was taken off.
Oh, that's a great point, Ian. The pressure. It never felt like there was pressure, did it?
No. Because the funny story was I was in Lanzarote for the Salford game. And I said, and I think what it was I was sitting by the pool in Lanzarote, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm not going to keep up to date with the score. I'm not going to keep up to date with the score. I'm just going to see at half time how the game's going, because I was half expecting us to see 3 soft tries, score a try towards half time, and think, right, okay, we're a bit behind. We're not going to win, but hopefully we can, damage.
Keep it close, yeah.
Limit the damage. But when I saw we were up, it was probably the worst 40 minutes I had on the holiday. Everybody's asking me to play all these silly games, and I'm going, no, because we're about 6-0. There's about 5 minutes left. Oh my God, sort of thing. But again, but all seriousness, all through the season, especially towards the qualifiers. It almost felt like, we London aren't going to do anything. Yeah, they've done well to get in the top 4, but it was they were writing us off, and I don't know what Danny Ward's pre-match prep talks or what was being said, but I've got a very good feeling that was one of the key messages in the pep talks. The fact being that nobody fancied them, so just go out, give it a shot. And I think also Salford admitted themselves that they took it too lax.
Yeah, I think they'd secured safety at that point, hadn't they already? So
I think it was bar the mathematical miracle that they weren't going to make it, but I think they turned up from what I heard and what I read, that they turned up thinking, well, the point's in the bag, so we're going to just turn up. And again, the steely determination got London through. So
again, that game then maybe was a sign of things to come? It felt like the last couple of games in the qualifiers for London were really tough, hard-fought, gritty performances, and then nothing was ever more hard-fought and gritty than the 4-2 win in the game with no tries in Toronto for the £1 million game.
I think the trouble is, it's when you go through those qualifiers, I don't think you can ever prepare for a £1 million game. Right. I don't think you ever can. I think it's, even in the last game at home to Halifax, who I think are a really, really good side, and I think Richard Marshall's done an absolutely brilliant job there. And with a bit more, if they've probably gone full time or whatever, I think they're a really, really good side. And even then, in that last game, that was a struggle.
Yeah, it was close
towards the end. But I think with the £1 million game, I don't think. It's you. I don't think you can even prepare. It doesn't matter how. It's a bit like. It's the cup final, isn't it? You could play brilliant,
though, isn't it?
It's it is what it is, and you can have a really bad season, but it was all down to on the day, and I had a feeling that with the Toronto game, it was all geared for Toronto to go to Super League. All the journalists were talking about Toronto. Even Toronto themselves were talking.
They were definitely the story, weren't they? Because of obviously
they were the story, and it was almost like, well, it's going to be great, which I can understand for Super League marketing, but. Even the club themselves said they were talking to Super League about staging some of the Super League games in Europe. So it was almost like, well, you know what? It's our home ground. It's London. We should win comfortably, and then we'll be in Super League and we'll get all the banners out and everything like that. But on the game, it was a very, very strange type of game. It was, although, the game went without a try, but
it was almost like no game you'd ever seen before. The best chance was right at the start, and that was where Alex Walker got cleaned out, and for him to then have the game he had after taking that hit, absolutely remarkable.
Oh, it's like you said, it must. I'm not saying it must have knocked his confidence, but to have that and then have the game of your life. And Alex Walker was one of those players that, as the season developed, he became a real star with the side. He was one of the players.
Who were the other players then? Who were the other standout players for
Eddie
London
Batty,
this year?
Eddie Batty, without a doubt. I think it was very much a squad effort, without a doubt. Obviously, Samet had that kind of season where he could control it. He reminded me when he went to Wigan, the fact being he could become like where Matty Smith used to be like at Wigan. He could control the speed and tempo of the game. In which case, he's the wily character that can dominate the game, and if need be, slow it down. And I think he's an absolute pearl signing for Wigan, if I'm honest. But it's sad to see him go, but I think understandably. But, I think Eddie Batty, without a doubt, was my outstanding player for London, if I'm honest. Because the season before, he looked somebody who put on a bit of a tummy, is indiscipline, let him and the club down a lot of times. But last season, he looked a lot leaner, a lot fitter. His discipline was a lot better, and I think, he was, to me, the outstanding. But it was one of those where I don't think, apart from Samet, you could really sort of like pinpoint anybody, because they all had an absolute peach of a season.
One final word on 2018 then, without pinpointing any of the players. What about the coach? He won Coach of the Year for the Championship. And, he had an amazing demeanour about himself as he carried himself through the qualifiers. It must have made the players feel really comfortable and relaxed. How great was he for London?
Oh, what can you say? He's a character, all right. The fans love him, which always helps. but he's always got this demeanour of somebody who, and it was almost like a very, very smooth transition from Andrew Henderson to Danny Ward. And like you said, it was also Jamie Langley there as his assistant, and not forgetting, let's not forget other coaches like Rob Powell, who was once the chief coach at London, who had a brief spell at head coach. But without a doubt, Danny Ward, Coach of the Year, I think, well deserved. He really has. He's got this demeanour as if to say, look, at the end of the day, he's the players play for him, which always helps. I mean, at the end of the day, he mixes in amongst the fans. I just think he's been the main, I think he's been the main. He's been the main reason. But like I said, it was a very wise move to give him the chief coach job by David Hughes. That's a fact.
Great job. Yeah, that's a great way to finish our look back at 2018. So Ian, we'll now look ahead to 2019 after a great end to 2018. 2019 maybe is going to shape out a little bit differently, with London maybe being one of the lower sides. So we'll run through the transfers first. So the players that have left, there's Garside, there's Davis, Channing, who's retired, Evans has gone, Pierce Paul, Tom Spencer's gone, and Jared Samet, who we talked a little bit about, is the main name of those that's leaving. The players that have come in, though, all have a little bit of Super League experience, apart from the guy that's coming from the NRL. So Matty Fozzard, Nathan Mason, Greg Richards, Jordan Abdul, Ryan Morgan, and Luke Yates, who's coming from the NRL. So when you look at that sort of bit of business that's been done by London so far, realistically, do you feel London have done enough recruitment, or is it more hope than expectation that they've done enough?
I think...
Sorry to ask a horribly difficult question.
Okay, ironically, since they've done the restructure, it's probably eased London's issues a bit more, I think. The fact that it's definitely the bottom club that goes, and rightly so, in my opinion. I look at it this way. You've got players that have come in on Super League experience. Yes, they're not massive household names, but, I'm pretty sure that they're going to go to London. They've got points to prove. It's Super
Definitely
League.
People like Mason and Richards have kind of been cut aside from Super League, but probably been good enough to play for the qualifiers level sides. So something to prove there, definitely.
The fact being this, it's like I said, okay, it's no point splashing money about on big signings when the money's not there, as we've seen with Lee, as we've seen with Bradford. You can splash money left, right and centre, but if it doesn't get anything on the pitch, then, you end up with more trouble. So what Danny Ward and David Hughes have been very, very wily with is they've looked at players from other clubs. Some of them aren't, aren't household names, but they've got Super League experience. They're going to go to London. They've got points to prove. So, again, it's going to be all down to attitude on the pitch. We will soon know come January when we are home to Wakefield. We're going to have a mixture of, we're going to have Dixon, Williams, the old starters are still there, but these new players, they're going to come in, they're going to, try and prove everybody wrong, the fact being they should still be with their clubs.
Ryan Morgan's going to have an axe to grind, isn't he, with kind of being usurped at Saints. Who's going to fill the halfback roles for London? Because obviously Samet was, well, at times the only halfback on the field in the qualifiers at times. So who's going to be in those halfback roles, do we think?
I think if you asked every London fan that question, you'll probably come up with different answers. I really hope this year that James Meadows comes along. He's a player of outstanding
kicking game.
He's got a very good kicking game.